Alright guys, so now that you've heard that, the first thing I want you to do is go to the description and download the pack that I have for you below. It's going to include all of the files that we use in this tutorial today. Once you download that, extract it and make it available in your browser window here. Go to your project speed once you've opened up FL Studio, and we'll bring that down to 126 because that's the speed that we run it at. And the first thing that we're going to do is build our chords actually. To do that, we're going to use FL Keys because it is the most basic piano plugin that we have available. So once that's loaded up, I'm going to have a little play and see what I can come up with. Now, if you don't want to use your own chords and you want to use the ones that I have, if you want to open the score, just go up here, go to File, Open Score, and what you're going to want to do is find Rufus Tutorial and go ahead and double click that to load it up. Alright guys, so I've got these here and just play them back. So basically what I've done, if you are using strictly just your keyboard keys from your laptop or your computer, you're going to want to zoom in and off time some of the notes from your pianos for starters. As you can see, there's different timings so that they don't all hit exactly the same time. They're slightly off, really fine. And then we're also going to want to adjust each of them with different velocities. As you can see, these are on different velocities, some of them. And that gives you a more natural feel. And now let's go back, escape the piano roll, bring up our FL keys, and we're going to mess with some of the settings in here. Alright, so all I've really done now is bring the hardness down to about minus 50%. The release is about 60%. I've got a tiny bit of overdrive, and I brought the sensitivity up to about 20% or so. That just makes it more of a dragging, softer piano sound, and we can go ahead and bring that volume up if we like. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab that highlighted green notch here, go to our mixer, we're going to go, for me, insert 10, and hit Command L or Control L in Windows to link it to your mix channel. Okay, the next thing we're going to move on to now is the bass line. Now, because we're not working with the plugin called Serum, we're going to go into the downloaded folder that I have here. I'm going to go to bass number 1. And we also have bass number 2. What we're going to do is mess with number 1 first, and I'll show you why afterward. So let's just dream up a bass line here. You can see that this bass will keep carrying no matter what notes are hit. We don't want to do that. So let's open up our sampler window. I'm going to go into the envelope section here, and I'm going to go to our attack knob here. As soon as we adjust anything in here, it will turn the envelope on. After that, we're going to bring a sustain all the way down, decay all the way down, hold all the way up, and then our release, we're going to bring that right down, so there's just a slight bit of release. Now when we let go of that note, it'll stop for only the duration that I hold the key down. Cool. So we're going to use that just for now so we can build a bass line, and then we're going to tweak a few things. So let's see what we can come up with. Alright guys, so I think I have something here. If you want to use this bass line, just do the same as before. Top left, File, Open Score, and then find the folder you extracted, and underneath the scores you'll find Rufus Bassline, Jarno, select that, and it'll load up just like this. So this is what the bass line sounds like itself, for starters. Now before we even go forward, you can tell that that bass line is super harsh and not really that exciting yet at all. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to go to Mod X, which is also another envelope, except it's for the filter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my attack all the way in. You'll notice the envelope will turn on. Amount is going to go all the way up. Sustain, right down. Hold, for now, we're just going to bring all the way down. Decay we'll bring in quite short. Just look roughly similar values to me. And release we'll keep really, really short as well. The next thing you need to do is go to the filter and bring it right down, because what this is going to do is act as an envelope for the filter. So this is going to mean the filter is going to start right up here and it's going to stop right down here, as if it's starting here and it's going all the way down. So it's going to cut it off like so. Okay, so when we bring this decay up, But we want to make this sort of flow a bit more, so we're going to bring our decay out, and now we can adjust our tension here. So you can see the line. Bring it tension again, loosen it up, bring it a little up. Pretty one up. More fill bass. So we can bring a hold back a little bit and a decay out a wee bit. And the tension down. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now the reason we haven't brought the other bass line in yet is because we're going to clone this one here. And by cloning that, all of the envelope settings that we have created previously are now attached to this particular clip. So if we go to our second bass and we drag and drop that in, it's going to have the same settings. So now we can copy and paste the same pattern we have. And they sound pretty good together. So let's link these individually to the mixer channel here. So I'm going to go to insert 11 for the first bass, and for the second bass, I'm going to go to insert 12, Command L to link, or Control L to link. Once they're in, you can solo them. I'm going to solo the second bass because I'm going to put some reverb on this one. Slot 1, I'm going to add some reverb. Now, the preset actually that comes up from the Reverb 2 is actually quite nice. The only thing I'm going to change is I'm going to select this tempo pre-delay and I'm going to put that on 1. So it's just in this first notch here. Together. And we'll just bring our wet down to about 40, maybe 30%. Cool, so these two together are actually quite loud comparatively to the FL keys. But let's bring everything together and have a little listen. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to create a bit of a sidechain send. So these three together, once we have them, we're going to go to the next insert and we're going to rename this to sidechain. What we're going to do here is we're going to go to our first slot and there's a couple options. If you have got Kickstart, that would be a great plugin to load up and we can use that. It's quite common. Otherwise, we can just replace that with a Fruity Balance. And once we have that, we'll close that out. Once we have the sidechain labeled like so, go to bass 2 and you can see down here there's an arrow linking it to the master. What we're going to do is actually link it to this channel and then delink it or unlink it from the master. What that means is this bass's volume or this sound is going to be sent to this mixer track and then through to the mixer. The reason we're doing that is because it's going to be sidechained and we can easily link each of these together by following the same process. So if we go to bass 1, we link it into this one which is labeled sidechain, this one here, and then unlink it from the mixer, sorry, the master. Same with the FL keys, we can drop that into the sidechain and then we can disable it from the master there. So now, if we play these sounds, the overall volume is actually controlled by this slider. So if that's all the way down, the other sounds are still playing, but we have control of the volume precisely on this slider. First things first, we're going to bring these bassline volumes down. Once we have that, we're going to go to our sidechain, we're going to go to Fruity Balance, and this part is quite important. Close the mixer, make sure you have Fruity Balance here. We're going to zoom in. Now you can see that this is a 4-bar length here. What we're going to do is we're going to only select just one beat. Okay, once we load that, we're going to go to our volume knob here. We're going to right click it, we're going to create an automation clip. We're going to close that out. We're going to zoom right in. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to right click here and we're going to bring that right down. We're going to bring this percentage up to say, let's go about 75% on the swoop here. Now once we have this selected, make sure that this is not highlighted, this slide, because now if I move freely within here, I'm not pushing any parts of the automation clip. Press the Alt once you have that and you can drag it, press the Alt key, and now you can move it freely. We're going to go for 1/8 of a beat here, which is right in the middle of these two lines. Pretty close to it, as much as you can get. Then we're going to go to this first part of the tension. I'm going to drag it all the way down, and now we can close out of that highlighted area, and we can now grab this particular clip and paste it. For example, we've got 16 bars, and we can paste that across that way. So we'll go with 8 because I think that's the same length of the clip. If we go to pattern 1, we drop that in. We can now see that once we run this sidechain here, the fruity balance itself is following that automation clip as if it was a sidechain. So if we bring in the piano, for example, if it's off, now it's on. So we're creating that sort of pumping effect. And we add all the others together. Now you can hear there's a little bit of a clip going on. Now we can lower that sort of effect by bringing this first knob down to about 50% or so. Maybe even less, we can go to about 30%. So the clicking is less from before. A few more fine tweaks and we can almost completely get rid of it. But for now, we'll keep it as like that. The next thing we want to move on to is the kick so that we have something moving here. So we're going to go into our folder. We're going to select our kick, which I've got as kick Jarno. Let's drag and drop that into the playlist there. Now, if it is looping over like that, you can just take the loop points out and it'll play as normal. So that's just one of the playback options there. If you hold it on while I'm holding the key down, it'll keep going. If I then take it off, I hit it once, it'll only trigger once. So let's go into the pattern. We're just going to click and fill each 4 steps, and we'll just paste it in just to get us started and have a quick listen to what that's like. So that gives you an idea of what we're working with here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to highlight this and link it to the mixer. So go into the first insert here, drop it in. I'm actually going to boost this kick a little bit. So if we load all these together, the balance of this one is actually quite nice. So for now we're going to keep it quite simple. We're just going to bring the volume down a little bit. So now we're actually starting to build a little bit of a Rufus vibe. What we're going to do is we're going to take our playlist sections in here, we're going to move them so we've got a little bit of movement. Actually, we'll go a little bit further. We're going to drop it here so we can drag some of our other influences in. So in the folder you will have a drum build which you can drag and drop in, which is quite simply just like so. And what we're going to do now, you can click and drag to select multiple channels in your player here, and you can drag them down. Once you have them dragged down, I'm going to take this pattern 1, I'm going to paste it in here. Then I'm going to press the shift button and I can click and drag to duplicate and slide. So that's shift, hold shift down, click and drag, and you can move it wherever, or you can copy and paste, whatever you prefer. I'm going to go to pattern 1, I'm going to make this a unique. Now I'm going to remove the bass lines from each of those, and I'm going to go to our first pattern, and I'm also going to get rid of the piano. So now we can drag our pattern 1 down, shift, click and drag, and now we have it running as before. For the pattern 2, because this is a build, I'm going to just repeat these same piano strikes all the way through. Up until this part, we're going to leave empty because we're going to use some effects to fill that area. So now we have a little bit more of a kind of a vibe going. For the drum build, double click so that it highlights it and link it to its own mixer. So I'm going to go to Control L or Command L to link it to number 20. Alright, so now we're starting to get somewhere. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to FL Keys. I'm going to add ourselves in a reverb plugin. Now I have a preset called Suction Chamber, so I would assume that you can also save this one when we're done here as well. But we're going to go with a high cut. We're going to bring it up to about 10 kilohertz, and the damp about the same. Low cut will bring up slightly, maybe about 500 hertz. The wet goes, for starters, all the way up. The dry goes all the way down. Size, bring it up a little bit. And decay, we can bring that up quite high, about 12 seconds or so. And this is what it does to that piano. So it takes out all of the dry and gives you only reverb. Now, what we're going to do here is go to the mix of this effect, bring it to 0. We're going to then right-click it once it's at 0, and we're going to click Create Automation Clip. Now, this is where it gets exciting. Let's just bring this one down to like track 8 so we have some space. We're going to right-click when those first piano notes come in, and we're going to create a build of that effect on a... For starters, we'll create about a 10% tension, and then we'll have that hold, and we'll bring it down to, say, maybe 75%, around about there, and then we're going to hold that to, say, 50% on a full flat from there. So that's basically sort of what we're going to look at for now, and this is what the piano will sound like. What I'm going to do actually, I'm thinking the best thing for us to do here is to go to the piano where it comes in, zoom in, and we're going to have literally just the first kick beat as the piano. And this also has to be sitting on time. I've got that off time, so make sure that these are 2 bars, comes in 74%, and boom, let's have a listen with everything together. The only thing that I would change here is I'd go back to our FL keys, go to Fruity Reverb, and I'd whack that decay all the way up so that we've got a really, really aggressive reverb on that piano. Okay, let's go on to our next part. If you go into the folders here, you should find some risers and things that you can use to spice up this build up a little bit. This is one of the risers here. This is quite aggressive. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to load that to, again, its own mixer channel as well once we have it selected. So make sure that it's highlighted here, and you can either hit Control L or Command L to link that in. It's going to be really loud. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to use this out knob here just to make it a little bit more flat in volume, and I'm going to bring the volume actually of the sampler window down as well. So this volume knob comes down, go to our mixer, bring that volume down too. Now, the first thing I'm going to do here, quite simple, I'm going to go straight to our mixer, I'm going to load in a reverb 2, and I'm going to use the exact same settings pretty close to it as before. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just have to keep it quite simple. The wet on this one I'm going to keep at about 50%, but I am bringing the dry down to 0. And size up a little bit as well. So what I'm going to do now is load this particular mix knob. We're going to right click it, and we're going to link it to a controller. We're going to link it to Reverb 2. So it's going to follow the same properties as this one here. So let's have a listen. Bring the volume down more. I'm going to bring this wet up actually. We're going to sit it at about 80% or so. So that's quite usable. I I think I'm just going to leave this mix level at 100% as well, because we're going to have a change of effects slightly in a moment. Alright, inside your zones here, you should have one called the impact in the folder on the download. That was aggressively loud. Anyway, select that, load it in. We're going to double click it. We're going to push that out a little bit, and we'll bring the volume down here first to about 40% or so. And we'll also link that into its own mixer channel. Bring the volume down too, and then we bring that first part in. So bring that down a bit more. And we've got our 2 downlifters in here as well. Again, that's really loud, but we're going to drag this second one into the playlist, and same thing, volume down quite low. We're going to double click it so that it's highlighted. We're going to link it to its own mixer channel again here, and we're going to bring the volume right down, like really low. Cool, so we're getting somewhere on that one. Now we've got a downlifter in here as well, which we're going to use for the drop, which sounds a little bit like that. So we're going to load it in, double click it, we'll load it to its own mixer part as well. So if that one comes in really loud, so we'll bring the volume down. We're going to make this one quite quiet, because Rufus Du Sol have a lot of weird sort of gloomy background sounds that are really quite quiet, that gives you that atmospheric feel. So this one's down nice and low. Cool, so now that we've got that in, we're going to add an atmosphere layer. This one in particular sounds like this. Let's bring that volume down. Actually, I'm going to leave it just like it is when you drop it in. So this is an Atmos layer, which is going to be really quiet, but for now it is really loud. And we can simply just shift, click, drag until we cover the whole spectrum of our playlist. And we're going to double click that so it's highlighted. Again, link it to its own mixer track. I'm going to separate it from the effects. I'm going to bring the volume right down. And I'm also going to bring the volume, of course, right down here as well. This should be hiding in the background. It should be really quiet. So this one right here is just sitting there. And that, again, another atmospheric tip, just something really in one key, the key of the whole track, just sitting in the background nice and quiet. Now we're sort of starting to build up the feel of the track, but I want to accentuate how aggressive the drop comes in. And how can we do that? Quite simply, we've got 2 very strong effects running here. We have the keys, which is really heavy, and the riser on reverb effects. So I'm going to go to an empty channel. I'm going to rename it to FX, quite simply. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to slot 1, load in a fruity free filter. We're going to move this to high pass. And we're going to go to our Q, which is our resonance. We're going to bring that down quite low. Frequency, we're going to go all the way down to 0, which is 10 Hertz. And then we're going to right click and go create automation clip. After we've done that, we go to FL keys, and we know that this is actually going to sidechain. What we want to do is actually deselect that from sidechain, and we're going to go into effects first. Then we're going to go from effects into sidechain. Now, we're going to deselect that from the mixer. So what's happening is that the FL keys is going into this effects channel, from this effects channel through the sidechain into the master. The reason I'm doing that is so that we get the piano still bouncing off whilst running through this effects channel. For the riser, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to the effects channel, then we're going to deselect it from the master. So this rise is also going to run through the effects and also through the sidechain, then through to the master, so that we have that really full pump feeling for any effects we have going on there. And I'm also going to bring up our wet. We're going to put it right to 100% as well. Okay, so now if we go to our effects, we've got that automation created. I'm going to go down here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a right click at the start of when our first sounds hit, and we're going to make a crescendo up until I'd say about 60%, and tension we'll use about 30% tension, 60% here, and then this is going to go down to almost zero. I'd say about 10%. We'll go 15%. Then we go to 4 beats ahead or 1 bar, and we create a nice tight 50% tension here, and we will we'll increase this one to 50% as well. So now we've got a nice swoop coming in. That will give you a more of a pulling feeling when the drop comes in, because it's going to cut the low frequencies and it's going to bring it in. So let's have a listen to that. Cool, so we're getting somewhere on that one. You can also hear the atmosphere is starting to poke its way through here, which we do not want to do. So we've got two options. We can either simply cut it from this empty section here, or we can leave it in, go to our atmosphere, go that into effects, and remove it from the master. Bear in mind that this atmosphere is now also going to be sidechain, which, to be honest, I wanted to do anyway. So now that we load that through, we can bring it up. And now that flows quite nicely. Next thing we're going to change is the piano, because we have to give more influence on the drop to the piano so that it's really sitting in the background. And to do that, I'm just going to use the cutting tool. So we're going to zoom in, we're going to go to 1 beat, we're going to make 1 cut here. We're going to go to the next chord, which comes in here, we'll make 1 cut there, and 1 cut before it. Then we can then go ahead and remove that previous part. We'll make 1 cut at the start of this, at the start of the next chord, and obviously only 1 beat also. We can get rid of that, and we can get rid of that. Now I'm not going to put a second one there, I'm just going to leave it open so that it fades out before we bring it back in again. Now, if we have a listen back, now we're getting somewhere. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to control click and drag, and we're going to select the whole chorus essentially. We press the shift key when they're highlighted, and we click and drag. We can simply bring that across, and we're also going to want our atmosphere to go across as well, and we can paste and move that however we want to. Really doesn't matter because those notes all hit at the same time. And we can also then drag across this automation, which is our reverb, keep it at 50% at the end, all the way through, like so, and we'll create a little bit of a push here, 15% tension, so that it's coming down like so. Alright, so we're getting somewhere here. Now the next part, which is really common, especially with Rufus Du Sol, is their use of little perks and things like that during the drops. This is actually quite simple for starters. Now, I've got the liberty of taking a few out myself that I think would be quite useful, especially for the Rufus sort of tutorial, and those particular perks are these ones here. And also a ride. And then we've also got our claps, which we'll come into shortly, and a hat for the second drop. But let's work on these perks. So go ahead and drag literally the ride and the perks from 1 all the way through to 5 through. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to bring in our ride. All right, so once you've got them in, it should look something like this. And we're going to need to link each of these to a mixer. You can do that simply by going to each of these, highlighting the ones that you want to link, like so. Once you've got all the ones that aren't linked at all, that are all got dashes here, and you select the ones that you highlight, go to your mixer. Now I want them to load into essentially these inserts here. So if I go to Insert 2 and I right click and I go to Channel Routing and I go Route Selected Channels starting from this track, this option here, click, boom, it'll load them all in for you. So you don't have to go and link one, select the next one, go back, link, and again, you can do them all at once, like so, which is quite handy, especially if you're working with stems. That's a super important tip. So once you have them in, we can now mess with all their volumes and adjustments and whatnot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to a kick, and I'm going to copy that to a new pattern, so I can either clone that or just go to a new pattern, fill 4 steps, and if we play that, we've just got a kick playing. So now it's time to have a play and decide what we want to do with each of these. So I'm going to have a play, placing the perks in different places, and see what I can come up with, and then I'll come back to you guys. Alright guys, so I think I've come up with something here. So what I've actually done is extended this pattern to 8 beats instead of 4. So what I did is I just took the kicks, pushed it out to 8 so I could have a listen. So this is what it sounds like without any volume adjustment, and I'll go through each of them. Okay, so that sounds a little bit aggressive for starters, but we're going to work on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and first of all, we'll remove our kicks because we don't need that anymore. Our rides, we're going to bring the volume down. So we'll go to the ride and we'll bring the volume down. We'll actually keep our kicks in as a reference, so we can just fill each 4 steps. And I want to actually move my rides as well. So if I go to our note pan, we can then just go a third on that side actually. If we just do that for each of them coming through, they don't have to be perfect. A little bit of inaccuracy in each is actually good. And now our ride is jumping from left to right ear. The next sound, which is this one, is simply just 4 notes after each other. And that has, under note pan, I've pushed it all the way to the right. So that's why it sounds like it's coming off the right ear. And we're also going to bring that volume down also. And our next sound is this one, which is just a stereoed little blip, and that's pushed all the way left. And if we go to our control, note pan, you can see pushed all the way to the left. We're also obviously going to bring the volume down on that one. A bit more, and a bit more on the other perk as well. Now we've got a really loud one here. I'm going to bring that volume right down. Bit more again. Now this one is kept as it is, no panning, just on the last beat there on that first 4. And we're going to add some reverb to this one because we want to add a little bit more of an atmospheric feel. So this one we'll load up reverb 2. High cut comes, we'll go all the way up, damp all the way up. Decay we'll put at about 4 seconds, and we'll keep our wet at 50%, and we'll have a listen from there for starters. Bring our wet up a little bit, we'll go about 60%. And we'll go to our low cut, and we'll go to about 500 Hertz, just to take a little bit of that low end out. Next sound is this one, which is just a type of tom with a cutoff on it. Bring that volume down a little bit. And the last one is just but it's pushed all the way to the left on the note panning. Now these are really important, the movement of pan especially. You can see the sort of ghostage of each of those clips have got a lot of movement left and right. And the reason for that is to give you a sort of stereodynamic placement of each of these sounds. And it's done on purpose by Rufus Du Sol in an extensive way. This is quite a simple way of doing it. We've got only a few sounds we're working with and they're pushed left and right accordingly. Playing with these to sort of create a more of a movement from left to right could be a lot more fun. We're going to keep it simple for starters. On this perk 5, we're actually going to go to our mixer and bring the volume right down as well. And we'll bring that volume down even more. Cool, so now we've got a little bit of movement. We're also going to go back to this number 4, which is the squeak. Sorry, that's number 3. And we're going to add a delay 3 as well. Once you load up the delay 3, we're going to bring our wet down to, I'd say, 20%. At time, we're going to go to 2. You can see the settings here. We're going to select ping pong. On ping pong, we're going to go to our pan. We're going to go all the way to the right or to the left, whatever you prefer. Feedback, we're going to go to BP, which is band pass. And our cutoff is going to come down to, I'd say, about 5,000 hertz. You can see the settings there, somewhere around there. And our feedback will bring 50% and have a listen. Now, we're going to bring our wet up now. I'd say we'll go about 50%, just so we can have a bit more of influence of this. Now that's quite a subtle effect, so we're going to push that before the reverb and go again. And if you listen carefully, you can hear what that's doing. So we're going to bring our delay feedback, we're going to bring it right up to about 80%, go again. Cool, I'm liking that. So if we play that back now. Now we're going to go ahead and remove our kicks. So once that's highlighted, Command X or Control X will cut that out of that particular playlist part. We can now go ahead and paste this across the first and second drops because these are impacts that we want to have come in quite soon in this track. So if we now have a listen, starting from the build all the way through, we should have something going here. First thing I notice when it comes in is that each of these sounds are already too loud. So our ride, for example, and our next sound's also too loud. All right, now we're going to go to this particular noise here, which is this one. And we're going to add a delay 3 onto that one there because I want this one to bounce a little bit. So we'll set our input to about 50%. And we're also going to go to our time. We're going to put that on a 2.0 as well. Select ping pong, pan all the way across. Let's have a listen. I might actually stick with a 4.0. We'll have a listen now. We'll bring our feedback down to about 50%. And we'll go bandpass, and we'll keep our cutoff at about 5,000 as well. Cool, now we can have a listen back to that. Alright, so we're finally getting somewhere on that one there. So these noises are all very subtle and take lots and lots of small adjustments to make them sound really good. What we're going to do now is just move on quickly to the second half of this drop here. And we're going to add in a hat and clap combo. So if we go ahead and create ourselves a new pattern, and we go into the downloaded folder, you'll find 2 claps and a hat as well. Now what we're going to use for these is pretty straightforward. The clap, first one, simply just goes in the first notch here. If you have any panning issues, just check your note pan. Some of them might be set to the previous note that you adjusted. It'll copy over to the next note. So we'll go for the first one there, and then clap 2 on the same part. What we're going to do for each of these, we're going to zoom in, and we're going to select the note by Control-click. And if we press down the Alt key and do left or right on the keypad, once we're zoomed all the way in, we can move this clap by the tiniest step right there. And we're going to do the same with the second clap as well. We'll just zoom right in on it as much as we can. Control-click, hold on the Alt key, then press left on the keypad. It's going to move it a tiny step to the left. Now this is a very, very important trick to remember. If you want your clap to stand out, having it trigger one tiny, tiny step before the kick hits makes the clap stand out, because your ears hear that first before the kick, and it really can help make your clap or snare stand out in your mix. So please do remember that when you are using this tip. I'm going to take my loop point off so that it triggers the whole way. We're going to do the same for the other clap. Turn the loop point off. And these sound like this. And a hat, of course. We're going to do only 3 hats instead of the usual 4. Like so. And we're also going to turn off our loop points. And we're also going to do the same here. We're going to link these to our mixer, but we want to not overwrite anything here. So I'm going to drag another 5 empty slots to the front. To do that, I hit the command and I click and drag over 5 slots. Once I have them, I can then move these left to right. So Control or Command, click and drag over 5 slots, hold on the Alt key. Now I can drag these through, and it won't interrupt any of the other things. And now insert 15 is where our next ones come in. So I have got these 3 highlighted. Go back to my mixer, right click, channel routing, root selected channel starting from this track. And now you'll notice, and we're going to want to bring each of these volumes down. We can do them all together by highlighting Control, click and drag, highlighting all 3. We can bring them down. I'm going to bring my hat down a bit more. And we can paste this over the next section. So this note here, we're actually going to clone perk 5. So what I'm actually going to do is just drag and drop. And in our hat section here, we're going to make our 5th quote-unquote hat hit here. And we're also going to turn off our looping points. And we're going to push this slightly to the left. We're also going to then link this into our mixer on insert 11 and bring the volume down. And the perk 5 original one, we're going to bring the volume down more again. So it's very subtle. Now one thing I'm going to add as well, I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to take out this last bass note. I'm going to remove this sidechain. I'm also going to now add in a clap, which is from this part here. Oh, we're going to grab a number 5. We're going to insert, we're going to drop it in. But we're only going to have our clap note play. So there's a little trick you can do with FL Studio. Go to a pattern, cut it to the point where you want it to start. But you also notice that that other hat is playing. We don't want that. So once you've cut it to the start of where you want it to play, say for example, we can go to where the first part of the hat is. We can go to the top here. We can make it a unique. You'll now notice that it's cut to the second half of that pattern. I can go ahead and I can cut out both of those hats. So now we just have the claps hitting. I'm now also going to shorten any of the percussions of the previous section. I'm going to go to a cutting tool, and I'm also going to cut out this part of the atmosphere on purpose, like so. The reason for that is I'm creating a nice pause, an open space before the next part of the chorus comes in. So if we play a little bit of everything together, it gives us already a pretty good tune. Personally, I think the hats and claps are a little bit too loud. Okay, now the final thing is we want that sort of kicks to really hit us in the face when the drop comes in. So we're going to add a couple quick adjustments to our track. For starters, we're going to go to our master. We're going to go to slot 1. We're going to load in a fruity limiter. And we're just going to bring our gain so that we have it, close to the ceiling. You'll also notice this is going to make everything extremely loud. We just want to be cutting off just the tops of the sounds coming in. Alright guys, so that makes it for the basis of this simple Rufus tutorial. And right after this, I'll give you a little clip of what you possibly could do if you spend just a little bit more time tweaking and adding some more atmospheric points. So this is the basis, the absolute basis of how Rufus Du Sol do more or less create their sounds, in my opinion. So if you've learned anything here and you did enjoy the tutorial, please do click subscribe and hit like. It really does help me out. So thank you for watching, and yeah, catch you next time. Peace.